join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red. Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. Get out your red shirts, your bucket hats and your scarves, because we're going to Wembley. I'm your host, Greg Oram, along with my fellow Forest fanatic from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
In from Ramon Sosa, there's Ryan Yates to put Forest in front. The captain stooping to nod in beyond Kaminski. Then Jon the Silver in behind, he's got Sosa in the middle here. He's trying to tee him up, Ramon Sosa for 2-0 Forest. Ramon Sosa, who's still going and scores. And Forest to level. Hitting and scoring. Oh, that's a lethal finish from Taiwo Awoniyi. That's a better ball in, and it's Yates. 1-1. And he doesn't. Matt Sells makes the save.
And who is striding forward to try and send Forest to Wembley?
Captain Yates.
But the captain, Ryan Yates. Right footed.
Yes!
He's done it!
Get it, Yatesy!
Yates does it! Forest have done it! Forest are in the semi-final!
Oh, go on, Yatesy!
Ryan Yates runs all the way from one end of the pitch to the other, and knee slides in
Thought I would help us relive our journey that's taken us from the third round with that home victory against Luton. And then it was penalty shootouts all the way that saw us with Yatesy firing home Richard at Brighton to put us in the semi-final. Good morning, Richard Spray. Thought I'd get the intro in line with this weekend coming up. How you feeling, mate?
Oh, man, better after that. That was a banger. That was another good one. Yeah. Can never go wrong with little Chester Bennington, the late great Chester Bennington. Yeah. And then we're going to be missing our penalty maestro this weekend, aren't we? We're not going to have Ryan Yates on the pitch, which is unfortunate. But yeah. What a great intro, man. Well done.
Thank you very much. All eyes indeed do turn to the FA Cup and Wembley this weekend, as it is semi-final time for Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Manchester City, and of course the super Nottingham Forest. Coming up, we'll preview what's in store for Forest as a sea of red awaits them, with fans travelling from all over to be part of a sellout Forest side of the stadium. Is this a free hit or too good an opportunity for silverware to ignore? Is finishing in the Champions League places the only priority? Or can we really win the cup as well? Here, with Richard and I to muse over it all, we have, of course, the OGs, the Statman, Danscape, and Raf, the random Force Ghost.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Split 5, I'm going in.
Set your course on the light system.
How rude.
I'm predicting another penalty shootout, and I think that's going to be the sound of my breathing come the end of the match at Wembley Stadium on Sunday. Good morning to our contributors. Raf, how are you, sir?
Oh, mate, I am well. I am buzzing. And I think the fact that I'm buzzing for this weekend probably speaks volumes, and rather than bricking it. And that's probably my outlook for the game. But yeah.
Good. Excellent. And Danscape, good morning to you, or good afternoon to you now. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Nervous excitement again. Another week of that. I think I've worked out we've got 29 days left of the season till that Chelsea game. So I think my heart rate will just go up like 1 BPM every day on average now till then, which I'm sure Dr. Anna in the comments can tell us is probably not a good thing. But I think it feels that way at the minute.
The last game of the season in season 1 at Palace has gone down in Forest folklore, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the people that were there. It was an amazing party because we'd secured safety against Arsenal, and it was just relief. It was, just unadulterated joy, lovely weather, brilliant game. And I got a feeling this is going to top it against Chelsea because we're going to already be in the Champions League by the time they come to town. We're going to have paraded the FA Cup trophy in front of our adoring fans that game. It's going to be absolute bedlam. I've seen into my crystal ball. So it's going to be bedlam against Chelsea. There's not going to be a seat in the house that anyone can get into. But that's in the future. That's 29 days away. We're focusing on this weekend and part 1 of that story, which is getting past Man City. So let's get some general thoughts from the guys on this one. Richard Spray. Look, it's Man City. We know the season they've had, but we've already beaten them at home in the Premier League. And Forest are a different animal now. It can't just be that we go into a game against a Liverpool, Arsenal, or Man City, think, oh, okay, well, look, as long as we play well and it's not too big a scoreline, those days are gone, aren't they?
I think so. I mean, I think that evidenced by how things have gone this season, it's like Raf keeps saying, we're a different Forest, right? This is the Forest that we know this season. And yeah, I mean, I think if there's ever a game where we know the tactics are going to be the sharpest, you hope the guys are going to be up for it. They're going to be ready to kind of, I think, go toe to toe. I mean, that's my perspective on it. I mean, I don't know if everyone else shares that, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see the best version of ourselves this weekend, and we showed that against them at home when we beat them 1-0. So I'm hoping it's going to be something similar to that. But if it goes to penalty shootout, which, just given our history this season with FA Cup, I imagine it probably will. And we've done well in those situations. I favor us in those situations. So cautiously optimistic.
And what about you, Raf? I mean, you said at the start, you're excited. We're going to be meeting up beforehand. And unfortunately, with Richard being in the States, devastated that you can't be with us, mate. But, that's just the way it is. But we're going to be meeting up.
In spirit.
100%. So we're excited and all that kind of stuff. So aside from, the getting into the ins and outs of the game itself, which we're going to come on to, what do you want from Forest on this game? What do you want to see from them, really?
Right. This is going to be maybe a bit controversial, but that's probably me in a nutshell. So I'm firmly in the camp of Champions League qualification is more important than the FA Cup. I know that is not the feeling amongst actually maybe the majority of the base.
Well, you say that. I mean, I think actually, to be honest with you, to interrupt you, I actually think a lot more fans are pragmatic like you and think, what, Champions League is a bigger picture. Everyone knows that I'm FA Cup guy.
Yeah,
I want both because I think we're going to get both. Honestly, I believe so much. I've been praying so hard for it, and it's going to happen. But I think you could be in the majority of people that want the Champions League spot.
So if we follow that thread, then one, down in London, it's going to be 21 degrees on Sunday in the afternoon. It's going to be an absolutely lovely day.
Shorts ready.
There are shorts, preferably red. And then it's just going to be a wall of red. You're going to be side by side by people absolutely buzzing in a stadium that is absolutely huge, and those kind of vibes from the playoffs all kind of coming back, which is going to be brilliant. For me, it's about the day out. If we win, there is another game that then has a massive amount of importance, which again, you're one game away from silverware, which is great. And it banks UEFA League as well, the Europa League. But it is another very important game in a run-in that we really need to not trip up on as well. And for me, all I want is us to have a lovely day out, Forest to give a superb account of themselves, which they usually do against big teams. They usually turn up against the big teams, as it were. And no one gets injured. Like that's the key for me, right? We play well. We come out of the game with our heads held up high, with some momentum, even if we've lost, because we've actually played a really good game. If we win, bonus. If we don't, we've kicked on from Spurs. We've got Thursday on the horizon with Brentford, which I cannot explain how much more I am bricking it about that game than this game coming up on Sunday.
Yeah.
And us be in good shape for that game.
Okay. Don't forget, if you're in the comments, we do appreciate you getting involved and dropping something into the chat. Hello there to Leo Cook. He says, you Reds. Absolutely. And our Texan Brucey says, good morning. Paul Morley, friend of the podcast, says, afternoon, lads. It looks like Richard has followed Mr. Clough's mantra and got himself a nice smart haircut for Wembley. Even though he can't be there, Richard, you're looking fine and dandy. And Gary is with us as well in the comments. Afternoon to you, Gary. I also want to quickly say as well for the Spotify's and Apple podcast listeners that do tune in later on, thank you for doing so. And we welcome you to Talking Reds for this semi-final match preview. Danscape, how you feeling, mate? I know that you're, you're driving down, you're meeting us up for a drink and that. I mean, I might go full kit wanker. I might just get the shorts on and get the socks on as well. I'm tempted. What about you, Dan?
Not the only one, Greg. There are lots of people doing it.
I think they are.
Yeah. That's not my style. I will, try and blend the red shirt into some other clothing.
Yeah, that's not your style. So you like to be kind of like just blending in.
Just blend in. I'm like I say, I'm feeling nervous. I can't, like when you just mentioned penalties there. Can't stand the thought of penalties in this game, to be honest with you. At Wembley, semi-final.
I've never been in the stadium for live penalties. I'll be honest with you. So I've only ever watched penalties at home.
Yeah, not a game like this where so much is riding on it. Definitely.
But if you win it though, if you win it on penalties with a save, or whatever, I mean, it's like going up through the playoffs or losing in the playoff final. It's literally all or nothing. So sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
No. But I mean, just going back to what Raf said about, if we win, great and all that. The trouble is, I think the only way to win this game is it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be long. It's going to be so much work and defensive work and all that. And, and a bit of luck along the way. I think the only way this game is kind of easy on us is if Man City come out and steamroll us, and win it 3-0, which obviously we don't want to happen. So I think we've got to be prepared for this to be a real tough game. I think it is going to take some energy out of the players and all that. But I suspect the players are absolutely looking forward to this. And I just think the momentum going into the rest of the season on the back of this, on the back of getting to the final could be huge to just get us through the next few games and bank enough points so that the last couple of games aren't, we aren't having to win both of those. It might just be we need a point or whatever. So that's my hope, is that we win this one. And the momentum is what then carries us through, as opposed to, the tiredness in the legs and all that. Because some of the, for some of these players, obviously a couple of them have played in the Champions League, like Hudson-Odoi's played in the Champions League and all that. But, to win an FA Cup is something that will be on their CV forever. So I think it's, probably more important to them than the Champions League side of it, or at least equally important to have that trophy or medal.
I'm a firm believer in patterns this season and the way things have gone with Forest, as I think we've all spoken about on Talking Reds a few times. It's been that when we've lost games, it's quite often we've lost 2 in a row. And then there's always been what we talk about, the bounce back. So we've had that 2 defeats with the Villa game and the Everton game. And that I'm almost thinking, and I'm hoping I'm right in this, that the blip and the last set of defeats, if you like, have now come and gone. And that's been underlined because we did bounce back against Tottenham, and we did have a really good opening 20 minutes where we were clinical and we were Forest, and we did exactly what Forest do. And it could have been 3 with an offside for Wood's shoulder. Sure, we sat back, and sure, we went to Morata time a bit earlier than maybe we liked. But ultimately, we won the game, and no one's going to remember thinking back, well, you were lucky. We won the game. And I think you carry that now into Wembley on Sunday, because, again, in those patterns that I'm talking about, when we've lost those games and bounced back in the league, we've had an FA Cup in and around that kind of time as well, where we've gone into the game and, okay, fine. The Exeter game was a tough one because we made it tough for ourselves and we had to rely on penalties, and the same against Ipswich. And it was always going to be tough away at Brighton, but we've come through it. And ultimately, we're in the semi-finals. So I think you're right, Dan, that and Nuno especially looks so unbelievably happy riding on the back of Ola Aina after the win against Ipswich in the penalty shootout. He's always said, look, we focus on the next game only. So I believe as much as obviously the club want to be in the Champions League and Mr. Marinakis is obviously going to want that as well, I do believe that they have the ability to, have the separation factor going on, completely zoning in now from the Champions League onto the FA Cup. It's the next game and putting everything into that game. So what do I want to see? I want to see them going all out to win the game. I want Nuno to come up with another tactical masterclass. I just have these weird hunches that he's going to surprise us with his team selection in some way. I don't know what that is. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Ola Aina plays. And if he's fit, I want him to play. I don't believe that he plays half fit. I only believe that if he plays, it's because he's fit to play. And if he's fit to play, he's fit to play. You've got to come back at some point. If you're going to come back, you've got to have a game at some point to come back into. And what we haven't had this season with anyone coming back from injuries is players coming back and then breaking down again. I can't recall an occasion where we've had an injured player coming back and then they've come back too soon and then they've broken down. So I think Ola Aina plays, even if he starts. I don't know which way you do it. I don't know, but I think if he's fit, he'll play. But I just got a feeling Willy Bolly's going to feature in this game, and I know that's going to be Danscape getting a bit of a lazy lob on here and there.
Maybe I will go full kit if that happens.
But I don't know. These are the kind of things going around in my head. But I want to see Forest going for it and come up with a tactical masterclass. But we're going to get into team shape, and we're going to get into who potentially is going to play in the semi-final now with our usual kind of look at the FOT mob. So let's get that up on the screen. Give me a moment, guys. Sort myself out. I've completely lost I think I've lost it actually. So let me get it on again because it must have evaporated. I had it all set up before and then it's disappeared. But there we go. I do apologise, guys. There it is. Okay, right. So what it's showing us is the team that started the game against Spurs. Now, we know, Richard, that Nico Williams isn't going to play.
Yeah.
What's he going to do at fullback? What's he going to do at formation as far as you're concerned, Richard?
I know we've tended to drift towards keeping it to this 4-2-3-1 formation because it's been what's got us, brought success to our club this season. You said something about Willy Bolly, and my mind went there earlier when I was thinking about this. When you had the FOT mod on the screen when we were chatting before the start of the pod, and I wonder if he's going to do a three at the back scenario, and if he does do that. I could see the vision being Murillo on the left, Milinkovic on the right, and Bolly in the middle. And then you've got on the right, if Ola's playing, you have him in that right position, and then you have, I would imagine, Moreno on the left. And that looks like that becomes your sort of back line.
So you're thinking three at the back is potentially the way. Are you including Ola Aina in this team then with three at the back?
Yeah, I am, because I kind of tend to feel the same way you do. It feels like it's been trending towards him being, sort of saved for something like this. Just given the fact that you need that experience, you need that acceleration and that athleticism and all that he provides, that ability to stand up players one-on-one. I know Raf's shaking his head already, so I'll probably have to defer to him in a second. I don't think he can wait any longer. But
this is why you're here. We've all got opinions on what we think it might be. Because it is guesswork. Ultimately, it's guesswork,
So I could see the merit in potentially bringing Gibbs White up to that sort of left wing position and allowing him to kind of roam a little bit, let Alanga roam a little bit. And then Wood has been absolutely, he looked fantastic against, my gosh, my brain just went blank. See, this is what happens when you work too much and you don't get much sleep.
Spurs.
Yeah.
Tottenham.
Spurs, sorry. Yes. So for me, I could see this being sort of the weird dynamic that you mentioned, Greg, that he throws in that wrinkle, something that maybe Pep's not necessarily expecting to happen, just to give him a little bit of a tactical edge because he's coming in with something that, clearly is not the anticipated formation or personnel choice. Obviously he knows that Williams won't be playing. He knows Yates is not available, but I like the idea of Dominguez and Anderson because Dominguez was doing a nice job of sort of dropping back and then kind of vacillating between a deep position to, kind of doing a little bit of roaming himself. And so, yeah, if this is the kind of thing that we see, I'd tend to be pretty happy. And it gives you a little bit of firepower off the bench if you need a little bit more offensive explosion towards the end of the match. I mean, Callum was decent. He wasn't his usual brilliant self. I think there was isolated moments where he looked really good, but not necessarily the comprehensive performance you would anticipate from him. But yeah, this to me looks like, I don't know, maybe I'm completely off base here, and I'd be interested to hear what Rafa.
No, because ultimately we are, as I said, we are guessing, and he threw curveball, didn't he? He put Toff in against Spurs. Was that because he was thinking about safeguarding Moreno for Wembley? Well, we don't know, and so it really is a bit of a pick'em. Would he bring Bolly in when he's not started for God knows how long ahead of Morato? Again, that would be a curveball. But then would he say, well, look, I actually want to safeguard Morato because of the running? Everyone knows I go to my three at the back, and Morato's my closer. Just quickly, I want to say to Jay, good morning to you. He says his only worry is not having Williams or Yates, as he thinks they'd make a difference, especially if Arna isn't fit to play. And WT Analysis Will says, afternoon, chaps. Fingers crossed for a great day out on Sunday. Absolutely. And Bruce in Texas, my main man, $20, says, get a few drinks on me before the match. Legend. Thank you so much, our Texan Ranger, Brucey. You're an absolute legend. We really appreciate that. You didn't have to do that, but thank you so much for doing so. All right, Raf, I can see you chomping and foaming at the bit there. Over to you, Sunshine.
Ola's my favourite player, and Nico Williams is now right behind him. But Ola has not played now in a really long time. It's a muscle injury, hamstring or whatever it is, or calf rather. And throwing him into a massive intensity game, just with troublesome, like if Doku we'll come on to who's being deployed, but if it's like Doku, someone like that he's having to mark, he's not worth the Champions League risk. Ola coming back for the run-in massively boosts our chances of getting Champions League football. And this is again my perception of the cup over the over Champions League qualification. What would you do? I prioritise saving Ola. Now, I would have him as a break glass option on the bench. So at 75 minutes, if we are winning 1-0, which is a familiar feeling, and I hope that is the case, then he can potentially, if Toff is looking at, or if the pickle juice is not working for Toff and he has to get pulled off, then Ola can come on and hopefully safeguard for 15 minutes, right? So I think it's a break glass option rather than, this game could odds on go 130 minutes, right? And it's just a really, I just don't like the idea. The back three, I do think, and we'll come on to it, I don't know if Pep's going to go wingers. And also, if they do, I think he'll clog up midfield, but they're going to try come through us like they normally do. So having three at the back to be able to just block all those balls being put through into the box actually works quite well. He does love Danilo. Like Danilo just starts the whole time when he's available. And without Yates as well, I have a feeling Danilo starts, and I don't know why or how. But
so who you putting where? Because you're picking all these players. I don't even know where you're putting them. Where are you putting them?
Well, that's the thing. But again, does Dominguez end up like we've seen before on a right wing back position? Right, he's a utility player. Now, he did not have a good game against Everton when deployed into that position, but everybody had a stinker. Right, no one played well that game. So potentially, you might see midfield of Anderson, Danilo, Dominguez on the right, Moreno. But I genuinely think it depends on Toff's condition. I think he was deployed to get him up to speed for this game if needed. And if he's come through all right and he hasn't pulled every muscle in his body doing that goal line clearance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, about 14 players could be. That's what we're going to need. But I reckon it might be something like that. And you might see Morato on instead of Bolly. Just because he might start with that. And I do think we see Elanga starting over Callum Hudson-Odoi. I don't think he deploys both wingers. But I actually think if we play to our strengths, how do we win? we get a goal and then we defend. So I actually would start. I'd play our usual formation of 4-2-3-1, and you'd have to play Toff, you'd have to play Moreno, you'd have the normal two at the back, you'd have Anderson and Dominguez in the middle, and I would put Callum Hudson-Odoi and Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White behind Wood. We go for the goal. We do what we did to Spurs to Man City. Man City nearly conceded in 16 seconds with that Rashford shot hitting the post, right? They're not infallible. We go at it, we get the goal, and then Nuno does his Nuno changes of what we need. I'll come on to why we deploy both wingers later on when we have a look at Man City, but this is what I would do.
Okay, so for those that can't see it, kind of eventually managed to go back to a 4-2-3-1 with Moreno at left back, so Toff at right back, effectively, or the other way round. Anderson, Dominguez midfield, and then the front four as you know it, guys. So, it really is, again, like I keep saying, a bit of guesswork. Will WT Analysis says he thinks that we might see the same lineup as Monday night, hopefully with Aina at right back. If not, he says, I think we might see Toff there with Moreno left back. He's not a fan of Dominguez at right wing back as well. That didn't work at all for me either. We're going to move over to Dan and see if he's got anything different to kind of put into the mix. Anything else from you, mate?
There is just so much up in the air with this one, isn't there? That's the trouble. I think it would be, you could say, look, with the players that's missing, the fact that we are missing Aina and Nico Williams means that maybe the back three is more likely just because of that, because it gives you a little bit more, consistency of players in the back who have played there. And then you've just got the one player out of position out of the five on the right wing back, whether it's Dominguez or Toff or Moreno. You've just kind of got that one person then who's unfamiliar, but you've got four who are familiar with their role at least. So you could argue that. I think maybe Nuno will think that. I think against the back 3 or 5 is probably that Man City don't really have like a traditional striker as it stands. So you don't necessarily need those bodies in the box. I don't think crosses into the box and clearing the ball away is going to be the threat. It's all going to be about intercepting passes and knowing when to sort of press or not press, keeping the spaces tight. So do you need the extra centre back for that, or are you better having the extra midfielder for that to kind of, drop in and deal with that? So there's just so much up in the air. It is really hard to see which one you go for. I think I can't see too much reason why we wouldn't stick to our preferred formation, given that's what we did against them at home and it kind of worked. We kept them quiet. I can't see too much reason to deviate from that, which I think is pretty much the lineup you've got on screen there. Obviously, I think trying to think what that lineup was now. Gibbs-White obviously effectively played where Dominguez is on that, on that graphic, and Dominguez effectively played where Elanga is, didn't he, in that game? That was how we kind of dealt with allowing Dominguez to go and put some pressure on them without exposing ourselves with Gibbs-White covering. So you maybe end up looking like that. In terms of right and left back, I just wondered whether Moreno was left out against Spurs because they've been working on him playing right back for this one game, and they sort of thought, well, Toffolo's familiar with it. He can come in and do that in that Spurs game. We'll not prep Moreno fully to play left back against Spurs. Let's take the extra time and have him working in the background on playing right back for this game because it's a one-off kind of, job for him to do. So I wondered about that. So I wondered if maybe you'll see Toffolo just repeat what he did against Spurs, and Moreno then comes in at right back as the option there to cover for the injuries. So this is probably what I would end up going with. And there was one more point which I'm forgetting what I was going to say. I think it's basically that Man City's improved form hasn't come about from scoring loads of goals. That's the one thing in our favour. It's come about because they've got better at the back. They've stopped conceding as many daft goals. So we don't, yes, we still have to worry about them because they're Man City are a threat. But it's not like all of a sudden they've started scoring 4 or 5 goals a game and we have to go out defence first. I think we can still set up as we did against them at home. It's just about us taking what will be fewer chances against them, than they create, but we can still restrict them to some limited chances, I think.
See, when it comes to the fullback,
very quick. Oh, sorry, go.
No, go. It's right.
All right, I was going to go. If we're in an alternative universe, or we're in next season, this is the perfect game for Sangare or that Mega 6 that sits in front of the back line and blocks up all of that traffic around our D of all that passing that Man City are going to do. So there is this wacky feeling that Nuno literally pulls a rabbit out of the hat and deploys Sangare in there to do that job, but I just don't see it happen.
I just kind of feel that if it was thought that he could come in and do that job, then he would have been doing that job in the league.
Yeah.
On the fullback situation, okay, we're missing Nico and potentially missing Ola Aina, but it's not like we don't have other fullbacks. We've got 2 available, and you quite often see so many different types of players filling in at right back or left back for their clubs. I mean, look at Man City. They've put Mateus Nunes playing at right back. He's never played right back before. So for Toffel, for Moreno to go from being a left back to a right back is not the most difficult, assignment in the world, in my opinion. It's really, they know the position, they know what is required of them, albeit down a different flank. So I'm not overly worried about that. I wonder whether we might see Morato coming into a left back position, which I thought we'd have against Aston Villa, but didn't work out. And so, Anthony's saying on the screen last week, we actually ran a 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2, clog in the middle, push them outside. And that's true. Thing is, the formation gets so organically moved around during a game. We go from like 4-4-2, 4-3-3, 4-5-1. So the thing is that the cover that they all put in for each other is really quite exceptional. They know their role, and they know that if someone's moved out of position, someone slots in to cover that position really, really well. Okay, guys, time is moving on, and we've got a few other things we want to get through before. So no time today for a full cheese trader ad, just to say that Stu Freestone is a legend. You know about the cheese. You know it's the best you can buy. Go and get some from his shop in York. All the stuff is in the bio. That's that ad done. Let's do this now.
I'm a Statman. Fazendo som, Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som, e Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som.
Okay, so we're going to whiz through some Statman specials. So I think this is you here. There we go.
Yeah, so this is just what I mentioned earlier, just looking at the change in the team's performance over the last 8 games compared to the games before that in the league. So this was just looking at Man City's change in goals scored, and they've actually been scoring less goals over these last 8 games than they were earlier in the season. Obviously, they're missing Haaland through injury. So that was just to kind of show that, they haven't turned that corner, if you like, in terms of in the goal scoring, as mentioned. So that was that one quickly.
Oh, sorry. I was reading a comment and laughing at it.
Yeah, I can see that one. We all want the cheese fix. Changing goals against. So then this is obviously, in terms of the number of goals conceded for each team, again, going down the league. And this is where Man City have improved. They're one of the top sort of 5 teams in terms of improving. They're conceding half a goal less per game, or a goal every other game less than they were before, which is where their results have improved because they've managed to stay in games, and they always create enough chances to score 1 or 2 goals, don't they? So that's where they've improved of late. That's where this game might be a little bit of a tight stalemate of a game in terms of goals, but obviously it's a cup game and at Wembley and anything happens. But if you were going on form, you'd think Man City's defence will be pretty solid, as will ours be, and it will just be the one goal that'll decide it.
Oh, I'm just looking at that and like the teams we've got left to play. Brentford have tightened up, West Ham have tightened up, Chelsea have tightened up. Like everyone that we've got to play seems to have got better defensively.
Apart from Palace. You can take Palace.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
So what I've done here is just look at, since we came into the Premier League in 22-23, this is how we've performed against every team that we've played on average. So just to look at sort of our past games against Man City, basically, what kind of game might we expect? Almost with a view that because it's a cup game at Wembley, it will be totally different, So, but what would we expect to happen? In terms of goals for, Man City is the team that we've scored the least goals against per 90 minutes. So, we've struggled to get above a goal every 3 games that we've played against them. As we know, we've scored only a couple against them, basically, I think, in all of our games. So they're bottom of the list for that one. In terms of goals against, Newcastle is our our bogey team in that respect. They always seem to bang in 3 goals at least against us. Man City, we've obviously averaged conceding just over 2 goals a game. So based on our average, you wouldn't be optimistic, but obviously that includes that first season when we got, really heavily beaten by them early on. So that was that.
Just on that, I'm quickly ask Richard a question on this. Man City, that stat right there, we've struggled to score against them. How much do you think, Richard, that's been that Forest have shown them too much respect since being back in the Premier League, and perhaps haven't believed they could get anything against them?
Certainly think that's a factor. I also, just taking this year in isolation, we did that against them in the first match when we played them away, but the second match was very different. And I think the way that we operate and set up defensively this season, the kind of personnel, the progression in players like Murillo, bringing in experienced players like Milinkovic, and having, Ola and Nico play to those levels that we've become accustomed to, it's made a massive difference in terms of how we manage those kinds of teams. I mean, we know that they're going to operate out of the midfield, but without Rodri there's a bit of has been somewhat of a lack of an engine to drive things forward to a degree. I mean, De Bruyne played, I think, really well against Villa, right? But he hasn't been consistent all season. And so I think there's certainly some dip in terms of form from their players, Foden being at the top of that list, Haaland going through, stretches where he's not scoring, he's not doing what he's normally going to do. But so that plays into our hands. But I just think the way that we've structured things and the plan that we've deployed, for the most part, 90% of the season, there's a few blips here and there, as you mentioned earlier, has just made it to where we're a lot more difficult to break down. And I think Bernardo Silva said that in a recent interview as well. He talked about how difficult we are to break down. So yeah, I think there's been that in the past. I think it's just been a lack of quality in key areas of the pitch. Sure. But certainly, yeah, playing more stout.
Okay. Next slide, Danscape.
So it's just diving behind the kind of goals and goals for and against in terms of how many shots we create against against Man City on here. And you can see, again, not the worst team that we've played in terms of chances created, because, again, if you think of that first game this season, we actually did have a couple of chances to score in that game. We just didn't take them. So on average, we create 10 shots against Man City since we've been playing them in the Premier League, which is not the worst, not the best. And on average against us, they create 15 shots. So the chances are they will have 5, or so chances more than us in the game, which is reasonable. Like, again, on the shots against chart, they're not the team that's had to create or has created as many chances against us as you might think. There's teams above them that you wouldn't expect to be there to some extent.
Tell you what, Dan, if we get 10 shots and they get 15 shots and we are at our normal selves, we win this game.
3-0. We're winning 3-0.
Yeah, probably.
RXG.
Might go on to the other slide, yeah.
Go on, and what's next then?
Well, the one after this. So this one is the quality of the chances. Yeah, so we're creating 10 shots, they're creating 15 shots, but what's the quality of those shots? And actually, on the left-hand side is the quality of our shots. And you can see we've actually created, in the top 5 or 6 teams that we've played, the chances when we have created them against Man City have been good quality. So there's 10 of them, and on average, they're like a 12% chance of scoring, which is up there, as opposed to when we play Fulham. Like in every game we've played Fulham, we've only created like an 8% chance of scoring. So we have managed to get at them a bit. Against us, though, they've also had the highest chance quality when they've played us. So they're getting like a 13% on average chance quality from their 15 shots, which is kind of the worst against us, which, again, is probably slightly swayed from that first season when we obviously conceded the 6 and, they were all in the box kind of chances. But it goes to show, yeah, again, it could, well, I suppose this contradicts the early one in that teams are getting good chances, but there aren't that many goals necessarily in this game if you look at the defensive record. So it'd be interesting to see which one of those dominates the other one, whether the defensive record or people finishing chances.
Yeah, say the impact of Matt Sells as well. Sells going up and defense going up. Okay, last one, Dan.
Oh, is there not definitely not another one?
Definitely not another one.
Ah, shame. Okay, so the whole point of these was to get to a graph that showed that we'd actually left. If you look at goals minus expected goals, then we've actually left 4 goals on the table in our games against Man City since, in the Premier League. So when we looked at the chance quality and the shots and all that, and saying that it's not actually that bad, it's because we've we've kind of missed 4 goals worth of chances against them, which is our worst of any team we've played. So it kind of gives us a bit more optimism there that we have created those chances. We've just not been great at taking them in those games against Man City because you're working so hard defensively. So this final chart was just to show that since we've been in the Premier League, this is the percentage of games in which teams have failed to score a goal. And you can see Man City right down there, only 10% of their games do they fail to score in the league, over these last 2.5 seasons that we've been in the league. We're not too bad, to be honest. We fail to score in like 26% of our games. We're not one of the worst, like Everton, who are nearly 40% of their games they haven't scored in. But Man City, if you were a gambling person and there's only 10% of their games they don't score in, is this game going to be one of those, or are they going to get a goal and might we need to get one and get it to extra time, or score 2, or beat them on penalties? Who knows?
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Danscape.
Oh my days, bruv! How did that go in?
Time is moving along. Let's get the scouting report on the table.
Send them back to East London! Send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
So we do like to make sure that we pay attention to our opposition, and Raf has got his scouting report on Man City for this one. What have you got for us, Raf?
Well, I'll just say there are far more intelligent people than I that have tried to predict Pep, and they've probably all been wrong. So this is a nearly impossible task to try and figure out what they're going to do. Their own fans usually don't even have a clue about what Pep's going to do either. So let's give it a go. These are the last 4 games. Have all been in the Premier League. No, they have not. Yes, they have. These are the last, and they've all been in the league. And we can see there has actually been what looks like a bit of formational change. And if we're looking at this for those that are listening in, we've got against Villa, which was the latest game. They had their 4 at the back. They had Kovacic in midfield. They had 4 behind Kevin De Bruyne, who was actually playing as the false 9. Against Everton, they had the 4 at the back. They had 2 in midfield and then 3 behind Marmoush, which is kind of our formation of our 4-2-3-1. Exactly the same formation against Palace. And then they actually played a midfield diamond behind a back 4, midfield diamond and 2 up front against Man United. So there's not really, on paper, very much similarity and consistency in how they play. The reality is, on the pitch, it's even less than that because players just move around fluidly so much that you can try and say they're playing a certain formation and it can just be like 10 different formations in a game, to be honest, and players all in different places. So what can we really get out of this? Right. To Dan's point about not scoring, even though Man City have been a terrible version of themselves this season, right, to be honest, they've only not scored 5 times. So even though they've been pretty bad for themselves, they still score the whole time. And perceptionally, they've been bad. But if we have a look at SofaScore, they have 13 players that are on 7+ as an average score per game of what they've had for their performance. And only Haaland is in those 13 of people that are not available to Pep, right? So he's got 12 players, more than the whole team, that are 7+ in terms of form, right? So even though they're not great, they've still been they've been good enough in what they do. It's just they've been leaking goals at the back. And actually most of their defenders are sub 7, except for the new ones they've been brought in. So they're actually in pretty good shape and they have been getting into better form. The massive learn point, and I do think the back 4, now, the goalkeeper, Edison, is supposedly only 25% chance of playing because he does have a groin injury, so he's probably not going to play. So Ortega will probably still be in goal for this game. The back 4, and as Rich alluded to, and Dan has alluded to, they have improved recently, and that has come from being better defensively. They've got some solidity in defence, and that has come from moving Guardiola into the middle, having Ruben Diaz in there, but actually converting two midfielders or attacking midfielders in Nunez and O'Reilly as their fullbacks. And for whatever reason, it's worked. It's Man City, it's Pep, it seems to work. But what I would say, and this is why I was alluding to having Callum Hudson-Odoi and Elanga on right from the start, is give them hell down the outsides, because those are not proper fullbacks. They love to get forward and there will be space in behind. Okay. So I think we've got a good chance doing that. Then we've got to try and guess what he's going to do. I genuinely think he will try and clog the midfield up as much as possible. And if it was me, Gundogan seems to always start. So if we go, we've got the four at the back. Sorry, we've got the four at the back and we've got the goalkeeper. The other known quantity that I would say is that Kevin De Bruyne is back. He's suddenly into amazing form. I think it's the biggest FU he's giving to Man City because they're not extending his contract. So he's put himself in the shop window to show the fact that he's still got the magic, which he does. And Marmoush is the only actual forward, proper forward that's fit. So they will play as the 9 and the 10 in some sort of combination between them. That leaves 4 players that we've got left to try and figure out who's going to play. Now, Gundogan seems to always play. He seems to want to play Gonzalez as well. And there's a reason for playing Gonzalez. If you have a look at the players that they have sitting behind the striker, they're all players that are not going to track back if we break. He needs something in their midfield to protect their back line if we break, and someone that's actually going to add some cover. And I think Gonzalez does that for them, because Gundogan's not exactly got a motor in him anymore, so he's not going to be doing that either. Bernardo Silva, if he plays, he's not going to be doing that either. McAtee just stays forward. He's not really going to be doing that. So I think they probably play Kovacic for a bit of cover. They play Gundogan, they play Gonzalez, and then they pick one other. They might not play those 3 if they deploy both their wingers. They basically have 2 wingers, Savinho and Doku. Doku had a blinder of a game in that Villa game. He outrageous connection of 3 bits of skill, providing an assist for a goal that was just out of this world. And if Doku starts actually producing, a lot of the time when people are getting annoyed with Elanga is his final product. Doku has final product, he's lethal. And Savinho has been pretty much the most consistent player all season. Does he deploy wingers or does he clog up the midfield? If he deploys the wingers, those 2 play, and it's probably 2 from Kovacic, Gundogan and Gonzalez. If they don't deploy the wingers, then those 3 probably play, and he either picks one winger and then pick from Bernardo Silva, McAtee, Foden. Grealish probably doesn't start. He hasn't started in ages. So it's really difficult to figure out what they're going to do. But you know what the back four is going to be. We probably know what the goalkeeper is going to be. We probably know the 9 and the 10 are going to be. And then throw the rest of the players up.
I reckon Doku does play. He always seems to play against us. I think Pep likes that winger that's going to unlock us a bit.
Especially if Ain is not playing.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the deficiency in fullback.
Yeah. He did play against the 1-0, and they played both wingers when they beat us 3-0 at home. So there is the possibility that they do deploy the wingers. What I would say, though, is having a look at this, is that going to Wembley as a neutral venue, McAtee is suspended. Nice. Well, I don't think he actually had the best game against Villa anyway, so I don't think he'll start. We have refound our away form, which was the secret of our success at the beginning of the season. And now our home form has suddenly kind of kicked on a bit, or there's a bit of a blip. We've won 9 games away, 9 games at home. So actually going to a neutral venue doesn't really bother us that much, I don't think.
Although this is Man City's second home.
Well, it is the kind of like their second home. But again, it's not their home with necessarily the pressure of all of their fans sitting on top of them, making them perform. I reckon we'll have far more fans in that stadium than they will
100%.
Come Sunday as well. And we have a look at it. They've only won 7 away from home. And if you have a look at who they've beaten, the only team that not in the bottom 6 that they've beaten was Chelsea on the first game of the season. So they've not had a material win away from home other than the first game of the season. And I know it's Wembley, etc., but there is some hope that's within there with actually who we're playing and how we play. Because to be honest, breaking on them is their Achilles heel.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Raf, for that.
How has that happened? It's literally what they do.
It is what they do. And what we're going to do right now is say thank you very much, firstly, to Way NFFC Mark for another £2. He says, I want my cheese ad fix. Well, I feel like we have to play it because you've given us a bit of a donation. So, time is against us today, guys. But, Mark asks
the fans what they want.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Basically, what that means is if you put money down on the table, guys, you can get us doing exactly what we want. So, if you want Cheese Trader ads, it's £2. I could take my shirt off if you want.
Whoa.
But there we go. That wouldn't be a pretty sight, but I'm open to offers. Anyway, right, we're moving on. Danscape, you said that you had come up with a little bit of a quiz type thing for us. So, what have you got?
So this is the FA Cup goals higher or lower game. So this is basically you've got to go. I'll go round in order, and you've got to say whether it's higher or lower or the same. There's the odd one that's the same in here.
Oh, damn!
Yeah, there's the odd one.
That's like the green bit on the bloody roulette wheel.
Yeah, that's it. That's the bullseye right in the middle. There's the odd one. So this is the number of goals that the players have scored for Forest in the FA Cup. Yeah.
Right.
So just in their time at Forest. I've kept it to players that everyone will know. I've not gone back into the history books or anything like that. So I think you'll know all these players. So yeah, you just got to decide whether it's higher, lower, or possibly the same. And you get three lives. Each time you lose a life, obviously, we just keep going around until the last man standing. And hopefully that's not past all the list of names I've got. Otherwise, everybody wins. So I'll start with Greg, on the basis that I can go around in order then, top left on my screen.
Okay.
So the player we're starting from is Alf Inge Haaland, who amassed 0 FA Cup goals for Forest. So it's an easy start for you. The first few are easy. So the player you've got to go for is Divock Origi, higher or lower than Alf Inge Haaland's 0 FA Cup goals.
The only goal I think Divock Origi scored for us was indeed, I think, in the FA Cup. So I will say higher.
You would be correct. You got one goal for Divock Origi. Yeah. So round to Richard. Your player, higher or lower than 1, is Robert Earnshaw for Forest.
In the FA Cup, yeah?
Yeah.
Higher.
Correct. 2 goals for Robert Earnshaw in the FA Cup for Forest. Raf, your player is Kevin Campbell. Higher or lower than 2?
Kevin Campbell, got to be higher.
Yeah. Correct. 3 FA Cup goals for Kevin Campbell. Right then, round 1 done. Greg, next player is Steve Stone. Higher or lower than 3 FA Cup goals?
I'm going to say Stevie Stone. He's got no hair, but we don't care. Stevie Stone. Higher.
I'm afraid. 0 FA Cup goals for Stevie Stone.
Stevie Stone, old little bastard.
Yeah. That was a surprise.
So he won't be coming on the show then. Great. Okay.
Yeah, bleep that bit. Richard, Pierre Van Hooijdonk. More than 0 FA Cup goals, or I suppose 0.
Same, 0.
Can't get minus.
I want to say the same. I'm going to go with the same.
No, he did score 1. He did score 1 FA Cup goal, which I can't tell you when it was. I haven't got that information, but he did score 1. This is all taken from the cityground.com website, by the way. I went through these players' record.
From our friend Gary.
Yes. Raf, your player is... So we're on 1 for Pierre Van Hooijdonk. Your player is Junior Agogo. Higher or lower FA Cup goals?
Silence isn't good for podcasts, Ref.
Yeah. Junior Agogo. I'm going to go. Super Rogue.
I'm going to go.
I'm going to go higher. Super Rogue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Three FA Cup goals for Junior Agogo back in the day. I assume we played more FA Cup games back then, being in League One.
We probably started in the first round, so true.
Yeah.
And may he rest in peace, Junior Agogo. He was a good lad for us.
Yeah, indeed. Greg, your next player is Taiwo Awoniyi. More or less than 3 goals in the FA Cup.
He's got 1 this season. I know that much. Less.
Correct. Just the one. Just the one for Taiwo. Richard, more or less than 1 goal for Andy Reid in the FA Cup.
Really.
Andy Reid.
He's thinking.
I'll say same.
Same? No. He has 3 FA Cup goals for Andy
3,
Reid.
goodness gracious.
He's just betting on green like every time.
Yeah, sorry,
There's only a couple of them. Richard's down to his last life, I think.
Yep.
On my count. Raf's still got all his lives. So your next player from 3 from Andy Reid is Chris Commons. I'm going through a left winger kind of phase here. So Chris Commons, more or less 3 FA Cup goals.
3 FA Cup goals.
Is that silence again?
I'm going to go higher again.
Higher again is correct. He had 5 FA Cup goals. 5 FA Cup goals.
We're done. Getting down to nitty-gritty now.
Ready, Greg? Yeah. This time, the next left winger on the list is Ian Wone. Higher or lower than 5 FA Cup goals?
Higher than 5? These were the days when we had a few good runs in the cup as well, but Wone...
He banged in some...
He did.
He loved a screamer.
I'm going to say lower.
I'm afraid not. He got 6. 6 FA Cup goals. Raf's,
I've got 1 life left, which has got 1 life left.
For Greg, 1 for Richard. From Ian Wone 6, Raf, Jamie Patterson. Higher or lower?
Richard.
Oh, sorry, Rich. Sorry.
Jamie Patterson, you said?
Yeah, higher or lower than 6?
Than 6?
Yeah.
Lower.
Correct. That was a
great hat-trick, didn't he, against West Ham?
He got the hat-trick, but he got 4. 4 goals in the FA Cup in total.
Oh, that was so... I said
right.
that was right.
Richard's still in. Next one, Raf. Stuart Pearce. Higher or lower than 4 from Jamie Patterson? Higher or lower
do penalties count as well?
Only in normal time.
Not penalties in shootouts, no.
In normal time, they would.
Yeah, let's go on it.
I'm really going to go same.
Ooh, that is a very, very bad shout, I'm afraid, because Stuart Pearce got 9 FA Cup goals.
9?
Yeah, that would be more.
Well, not on top, but, in recent times.
Yeah.
Recent times, he's the highest on this list. Well, I shouldn't have said that because
you should have said that.
Free hit.
Try and guess this one. Greg, Nathan Tyson, higher or lower than 9 FA Cup goals?
I would have absolutely said lower anyway. Yeah. I know he scored that great goal against Man City in the cup when we won 3-0, but yeah, it's going to be lower.
Is 6 though? 6 FA Cup goals.
Ooh. That's more than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
right.
Then,
okay.
Richard, tough one here, I'm afraid, on your last life. Nigel Clough, higher or lower than Nathan Tyson's 6 FA Cup goals?
Higher.
or the same. Sorry, I should obviously add there. So you've
The
still got that.
irony, if it's the same, and Richard,
It probably will be, but I'm going to go higher.
Okay, it is the same. Nigel Clough also had 6 FA Cup goals.
Oh,
That's all right.
Of all the times. So I'm afraid Richard is gone. It's just
it's
between
gone.
Raf and his 3 lives. And
It's
Greg
got
and
no.
his 1
It's
life.
one, it's one life.
That's 2.
Alanis Morissette.
Come on, Dan. You're supposed to be leading this quiz. He's got 2 lives left.
Has he?
Yeah.
Oh, which one did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Of course. Sorry, I've just not scribbled it on here.
I picked the
Good
same
counting.
for something.
Welcome to Talking
Count.
Reds for high class quiz action.
Yeah, I don't know how to count. You see, with all these stats are just made up. Right then, Nigel Clough 6. Next player is Ryan Yates. How many FA Cup goals, higher or lower, for Ryan Yates?
He loves a goal. Lower.
It is correct. 4 for Ryan Yates so far. 4.
Sorry.
Still a good tally.
I just like that wrong buzzer. I like that.
Still in the game. Greg, your next player is
Right.
Paul McGregor. Higher or lower than 4 FA Cup goals?
Oh, Paul McGregor, lower.
Correct. Back to 0. 0 FA Cup goals for Paul McGregor on that one.
He didn't score many goals. If he scored, he lives off the Leon moment, and I think that's about what he ever did, really. Honestly.
Well, he's not coming on the pod either, is he? He's running out of right wingers. Oh.
I love Paul McGregor and Steve Stan, I promise.
Right then, Raf. From 0 for Paul McGregor. Next up is Danilo dos Santos de Oliveira. In my Portuguese Brazilian accent. Higher or lower than 0 FA Cup goals?
Or same.
Or the same?
He loves his league goals, end of season league goals, but has he actually scored a cup goal? I don't think he scored a cup goal. But I don't like the fact that Danscape just went higher or lower and he didn't offer up the same, like it was in his consciousness.
Let's just force the habit.
I'm going to go the same, 0. Make it interesting. One
Scored
line.
against Bristol City last season, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yeah, when we won 3-2.
Yeah,
he did.
Also, we're on 1 life each.
So 1 life each. Getting interesting now.
Hang in there, watchers and listeners. This is nearly over, I promise.
Nearly over. Greg, next up, Neil Webb. Higher or lower than 1 FA Cup goal?
Higher.
Yep. 4 for Neil Webb. Raf, Lewis Graben. Higher or lower than 4 FA Cup goals?
Perhaps higher.
Higher or lower? Over.
Greg wins.
Game is over.
Literally
come back
shot
here.
3 lives in a row. That's awful.
1. Only 1 goal in the FA Cup for Forest for Lewis Graben.
Wow, that's surprising.
Kids.
Yeah.
Well,
and your next and final, well, presumably final one would have been Jason Lee. Just out of interest, Greg. Higher or lower than 1 FA Cup goal?
I know one in the FA Cup. I'd have said same.
0 for Jason Lee.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't much. So there we go.
There we go.
Doesn't matter.
Well
Champione. Thank you very much. Paul Morley, who loves a quiz, says McGregor scored against Man United in the league the week after the Leon game and a scissor kick at Sheffield Wednesday a bit later on. Thank you very much for that, Paul. We definitely want to make sure that we show Paul McGregor the right kind of love. I was being a little bit dismissive, and I didn't mean to be that way. Thomas O'Flaherty says he's a Man United fan. He went to Madrid to cheer Forest on in the 1980 European Cup final and has loved our club since then. He says, go and beat City this weekend, you Reds. That's really gracious of you, Thomas. Thank you for watching. We're going to do our best against Man City, and, we appreciate your support for us. Okay, I think we're just probably out of time. I want to say that the women play on Sunday as well. They've pretty much already won the league because they're ahead on points. They played their game in hand. If they lose and Wolves win, it's a 14-goal swing, I think. So they've won the title pretty much, I would say. They kick off, I think, at 2 p.m. at City Ground. Holly and the Forest Women's Fancast crew and all the regulars will be there, and then they'll be watching the game. So if you're in Nottingham, go and watch the women at the City Ground. Lift the trophy, then get down to Trent Nav or wherever it is you want to get to watch the semi-final. Let's have some score predictions. We're really running out of time, guys. let's have some score predictions. We go round closing thoughts and score prediction. Raf?
Score prediction, I think it's 1-1 and it goes to pens and we win on penalties. What I will say is the women go undefeated the whole season if they can draw or win, which is absolutely amazing. And my final thought is I have got a first date lunch on the Saturday that I'm bricking it far more for than the game on the Sunday.
There you go.
Okay, then.
Fantastic.
Okay. That answers the question I was going to ask you after, but there we go. Danscape, final thoughts and score prediction.
Yeah, hard to see past 1-1 or something very tight in normal time. But I think it gets decided in extra time. So I'm gonna say we nick some in extra time. Maybe Taiwo comes on and nicks us a 2-1 win in extra time. That's my hope for the game. And my final thoughts is just that, mentioning Taiwo, because it's a cup game, because you got extra time, because you got penalties, there's going to be so many twists and turns in this game. Players coming on that we didn't expect to get game time, shuffles of formation. Anybody could come on and have a massive impact, whether they start or not. Aina coming on off the bench and all that sort of stuff. So it's I think it's just going to be an absolute roller coaster of a game. I think
so as well. Richard Spray, I've said it a few times, I'll say it again. I wish that you were going to be with us at Wembley, but you'll be watching from the comfort of Oklahoma. Final thoughts on this one and your score prediction, please.
Yeah, real quick. Just a quick shout out to Steve Cook and Jack Colback talking about Forest and what they've done this season. But Cookie's actually going to be there with his oldest child. So maybe, a little bit of that magic that we had, in 21-22 will return to Wembley and we'll get some good mojo there. I tend to agree with Dan. Although I'm going to say we do something completely unexpected, and I think we win 2-0. We get this masterclass, defensive performance where we absorb the pressure, we let them have that possession, but we get an early Chris Wood goal that sets the tone, allows us to kind of bet in a little bit, and then we get a counter goal from Callum or Langer or something of like that, late in the match, but with some magical saves to keep us in it. So I'm going to go 2-0, no penalties. I was thinking penalties, but I'm like, nah, we're going to win it 2-0. We're going to completely shock the world and beat Man City 2-0 in Wembley.
Big Arn is in the comments saying pens, please.
No.
Big Arn. I know that Big Arn's feeling very happy. He's going to Twickenham on Saturday, he says, and he's going to Wembley. He's got a new flag. So Big Arn is asking for pens. And listen, as long as it's a pens and we win, then that's all we really care about. I think that, look, I know that I keep saying it, but I've just got it in my mind that Willy Bolly has got a moment before the end of the season. I've said it a few times. And I just think Wembley, Willy Bolly coming on or starting, Bolly header or something, score a goal. That's kind of where I'm going to.
Dan won't survive. We'll have to
I'll be streaking on the pitch. You'll see me.
2-1. 2-1 to Forest. It's probably extra time. If we go penalties, we're winning it. But we're going to the FA Cup final. So I don't know how we do it, but we're going to the FA Cup final. I think we go up 1-0 with a Chris Wood goal. I think they peg us back in the second half, and then it's Willy Bolly time, and he comes up with a late winner, a nice header from a corner or something, or a free kick move. But either way, guys, the final thought from me is that let's enjoy it. Yeah. Let's absolutely enjoy it and remember where we've come from. I'm fortunate to be of an age where I grew up with Forest and Clough and going to Wembley, and it was our second home at the end of the 80s, and it was part and parcel of English football. Was Nottingham Forest one of the big clubs in the country, and when the Premier League was formed, Forest were one of the 2 or 3 or 4 that were part of that initial conversation, because we were one of the big boys, and a whole generation of fans, Forest fans, missed out on what it was like to be in the conversation. League One football for 3 years and Championship football. And we've talked over and over again on Talking Reds about those times and what it's like to be a Forest fan and to not have that. And a whole generation of fans now know what it feels like to be leading again, and to, in terms of the conversation, in terms of everyone's talking about Forest in a nice way. And we've only ever played in the European Cup 3 times. We've won it twice. you know, we're going to be back in the European Cup again when we qualify for the Champions League. We're going back to Wembley again, and we were one of the teams that hadn't played at Wembley, the new Wembley. There was like a handful of teams in all the 92 and non-league as well that hadn't played at Wembley. And it was like, are we ever going to get to play at Wembley? And of course, we got to play our final, won it. And within a few years, we're going back again. So look, these are times for us to embrace, to enjoy. Let's not get too high. Let's not get too low. But we're going to Wembley on Sunday against Man City. It was the game of the weekend. All right? Get your flags out. Get your scarves out. Get your bucket heads out. Paint London red. And we'll be back to talk about a famous Forest victory. The dog's barking somewhere in the background I can hear. Everyone's going crazy. Come on, you Reds. Wembley! Wembley!
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.